Well, the weather isn't as good as last week. It's still about 14 degrees. And it isn't actually raining, but there is a mist, a fog in the air, which if you stay in it for too long, it's going to be like it rained anyway. But never mind, we're still out, we're on the bike, talking about last week. I've been thinking a lot about last week's ride out. I've had several people come to me and say, that looked like a really good ride out, that did. And of course, everyone who was on the ride out has fed back the same. But to have people who weren't there, who've only really experienced it through watching the video, having those people feedback that it looked amazing, I actually really appreciate that, because that's a compliment for me and my video editing skills, but it's also a compliment for the ride itself. Credit to Ed and Michelle, they organised it and Michelle led. Yeah, it was a great ride out, and I've given it a lot of thought this last week. It's made me think a lot about riding in groups and whether I prefer to ride in a group or whether I prefer riding solo. And I'm happy to say that nowadays I get the option of doing both, and there is pros and cons of both as well. Of course, when I first bought my first motorbike, this bike, 7 years ago, I didn't know anyone with a bike, so my ride outs were always going to begin as solo ride outs, which is fine with me because I'm an introvert and I love being on my own. I'm quite a solitary person. So of course my initial rides were always going to be solo, and I loved it. I loved the fact that I was just on my own on my bike. But if you're an extrovert, or if you prefer being in the company of others, then you may not enjoy solo ride outs as much as I do. So you may not have the choice, actually. Sometimes we want to ride out with other people and we don't get the choice because nobody is available. So that happens as well. But when I look at the pros and cons of solo riding, riding with groups, I mean, solo riding, you get to ride where you want, when you want, how you want, as fast or as slow as you want, and you get to stop where you want for as long as you want and come back when you want. You know, it sounds like a very selfish affair, but that's the beauty of solo riding. Everything is on your terms. You have a lot less to think about, to worry about. You don't have to worry about who's going to lead the group and who's at the back. Is the group still all together? Have we got split up? Does everyone know where they're going? Has anybody gotten lost? I guess the downsides of solo riding is, I'd imagine it could get pretty lonely for some people, and I guess if you get lost, again, I mean, it doesn't bother me. I've deliberately gone up the moors and gotten lost and just carried on riding until I saw a sign for somewhere that I knew and followed it, and then I knew how to get home. So yeah, that sort of stuff doesn't bother me, but again, I'd imagine it would bother some people. I guess if you get into difficulty, if your bike breaks down, it's nice to have someone there. It was nice to have Zach there when Laren broke down, and Zach helped me fix the bike. There's probably more downsides to solo riding, but since I enjoy it so much, I'm probably just not thinking of them. And then you got the pros and cons of riding in a group. I remember the first time I ever rode out with other people. It was several years ago with my friend Ed and my friend Zach, it would have been back in my L plate days. That was the first time I'd ever ridden bikes with other people, and it was literally just the three of us, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I remember thinking, yeah, there's something here, there's something to this. It's not my usual, you know, it's not my usual thing. I'm normally out on my own, but I had the opportunity to ride out with them, so I did, and it was brilliant. And so the pros and cons, yeah, it is more fun in a way when you've got people with you. It's more fun because you're enjoying your bike, you're enjoying the ride, they're enjoying their bikes, they're enjoying the ride. You know, you are with like-minded people. So yeah, I have to give it, you know, it's, much as I love my solo rides, yeah, riding in a group, it is more fun. And sometimes it depends on who is in the group as well, because you can have some sensible groups and you can have some groups where there's always going to be a joker or two. Again, it's fun. Now, when you are riding in groups, one thing I've found is that sometimes it depends on the group. So I'm sort of right in the middle here between pros and cons. I've ridden in groups where before we've set off we've decided who's going to be bike number 1, number 2, 3, 4 and 5, and last week we pretty much stuck to that, but that was quite organised. I've been on one actual organised ride, and there was about 100 bikes, and with that sort of thing you all just ride, and people ride their own ride, and that's an important thing actually with group rides. You have to make sure that you ride your own ride. Don't try and keep up with people if you don't have the ability to, because you're going to get yourself into difficulty. You're much better off riding your own ride. And then of course, yeah, I can barely see with my visor down. Let's leave that visor up for a minute. This fog has gotten ridiculous. And then of course you've got the rides where you maybe don't know everyone, and those can be interesting because there's nearly always one person or a couple of people who want to be first. They want to be first, and as long as they know where they're going to be first. They're going to make sure of it. They treat the ride out like a game of Mario Kart. They don't want to be at the back. They want to be first. And I've seen some spirited rides. I've ridden enthusiastically, shall we say, on some rides, and again, it is fun. But sometimes if you don't know the people you're with, I find that it helps to kind of get the lay of the land. You know, it helps to just ride with them for a few minutes first, see who's who, see who wants to be first, see who's content to be wherever, somewhere in the middle, at the back. Get a feel for it, get the lay of the land, and then ride out with them. Yeah, I enjoyed both. There was a time when I didn't think I would, when I thought I would just ride solo. But actually, having now had the opportunity to do both, I have to say I don't really have a preference. I'm always going to love my solo rides, but having given it some thought today and throughout the week, I feel like I need to get out on some more ride outs with people, because it is fun. You just have to watch with some people. Some people love to kill switch you.
I had to stall myself just to do.
I noticed. I tell you what, I'm terrible with names, and I can't even think of this guy's name, and I feel really bad, but I tell you what, I'm going to get my own back on him. He's a really sound guy, and I do hope one day that I can get my own back on him.